Jesus began a long journey with his disciples, starting from Galilee. Jesus arrived in Jerusalem around Passover, the biggest Jewish holiday. Rumors about Jesus spread beyond the Galilee region, throughout Israel, and even outside the country. Many people in Jerusalem had already heard rumors about Jesus. When people knew that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, they wondered and looked forward to how he would get there. When Jesus entered Jerusalem, he used a slightly special method. It was riding a small donkey that no one had ever ridden before. The disciples brought a colt and spread their cloaks on it. Jesus rode that donkey and entered Jerusalem. In the book of Zechariah in the Old Testament, it is written, "When the king who will save Israel enters Jerusalem, he will come riding on the colt of a donkey." Jesus tried to remind those who were waiting for him based on these words. He entered Jerusalem exactly in the way recorded in the Bible. When the people of Jerusalem saw Jesus coming in, they cut branches from the trees in the field and spread them on the path where Jesus was coming. And they shouted, "Hosanna! Hosanna!" The word Hosanna means, "Save us now." This is a scene where you can feel the hearts of people who want Jesus to save them. Some people may have thought of God feeding many people with little food while shouting Hosanna. They probably hoped that he would save them from a life of poverty. Another person may have shouted Hosanna, hoping that the country would be saved from Rome, which was ruling Israel. The disciples who were with him probably heard the sound of people shouting Hosanna and expected that when Jesus ascended to a high place, they would sit next to him. However, the Pharisees, scribes, and priests who hated Jesus thought differently. They must have decided that they had to capture and imprison Jesus somehow during the Passover period. Although everyone was shouting Hosanna in one place, everyone had different thoughts. So what was Jesus thinking at this time? The Lord must have been thinking about the cross, death, and resurrection that he had taught his disciples. After Jesus entered Jerusalem, Jesus did not move as people thought. Looking at Jesus doing so, the anticipation that made them shout Hosanna turned into hatred. Some disciples even betrayed Jesus. So in the end, Jesus was handed over to trial by those in power and eventually crucified. Lent is about to begin. It is a period to remember the suffering, death, and resurrection of Jesus. With what kind of hearts and expectations should we greet Jesus of Lent? When we greet him, shouting Hosanna, I hope that we will think carefully about his intention of coming to us, not our own thoughts. Let's spend Lent with Hosanna in our hearts, filled with God's desire for glory in heaven and peace on earth.